Hello, CSI Eagles. Welcome back to the Knowledge Nest. This is episode 19 of the Knowledge Nest. Last week we talked about metadata in episode 18, and we talked about the different designations and aspects of items that could be used to classify them and specify specific items and collections of items, if you're talking about archives, so that it'll be easier to discover and use in your research. And we talked about things like title, author name, publication date, subject, etc. You remember at the very end I talked about controlled vocabularies and the Library of Congress and etc. And you probably were wondering, until I told you, why am I going to need to know this? Well, this week, I'm going to use those things to help you search effectively when you're looking for things in the library catalog and in other places. But before that, last week we had a wonderful book club meeting with 7 or 8 faculty members who all discussed The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Alison was very grateful. We are looking to have more student participants in these book clubs. We're not just doing these for the faculty and the staff, and we're all. These books are educational in a cultural sort of way. They discuss things that in a way you can only really discuss in fiction, but they're also very entertaining. I've read 1 or 2 of them myself, and I learned a lot of things from them. And I encourage you to at least read the books if you don't attend the book clubs. But it's only, I think the last one took 45 minutes. So it's 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour if you really get into the discussion. And you can also participate in other ways. You can leave notes up on one of our boards. There are many, many different suggestion avenues. You can email us if you want suggestions for the book club. We're always open to help you, and really the book club is for you. Alison started it as a way so that people could communicate about things they're reading and communicate about fun things. College is very educational and it's very hard work, but it can also be fun and enjoyable, and this is one of the ways we wanted to kind of promote a sense of community among the students and the staff and kind of build connections that way. So please, please, please come to the book club meetings, come to our activities. We're going to have a mini golf tournament. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have something like 8 or 9 holes there. It's going to be very, very fun. So please come to that. And we had a lot of turnout for the murder mystery in the library as well, so thank you all for coming to do that. We're going to look into doing that more regularly. And trivia night was a blast as well. We've been doing a wide range of activities in the past month or 2, and we really like the turnout, and we're glad that you guys like it. We're going to keep continuing them. Please give us suggestions for more activities. So, now we're going to use the metadata that I discussed last week to help us in our search for items. So let's go to the csi.library or csi.edu/library webpage and click on the search box and then type in nuclear power. The first item that will come up is commercial nuclear power. If you click on that link, it'll take you to a more detailed page, and you have some metadata in the results as well. But if you click on the link, it'll take you to the full page. It's a pop-up, so make sure you have your pop-ups enabled. And it will have the title, the author, publication date, publisher, physical description, and subject terms, as well as the language and the corporate author, because we want to make sure that we have both types of authors. So technically they're the same, but they're different because one of them is the designated authority record, and one of them is an author name that someone else came up with. So anyway, and this will be important because you need to have standardized information about authors and subjects, etc. And this will become clear as I go through the metadata list. Let's go through and see exactly what terms we could have used, other terms, to look for this book. We have, or actually it's a resource, it's a collection of maps. So we have the title, commercial nuclear power, the author, the added corporate author, let's go down here, is United States Office of Coal, Nuclear, Electric, and Alternative Fuels, Nuclear and Alternate Fuels Division of the United States Department of Energy. The publisher is Energy Information Administration, Office of Coal, Nuclear, Electric, and Alternate Fuels, U.S. Department of Energy. and it's available from the Superintendent of Documents, U.S. Government Publishing Office. It was published in 1983. It is a collection of illustrated maps. It's around 28 centimeters wide. So that's the physical and publication information that you would need to know, the very most basic things. But let's go into the subject terms, and let's see what we can find there. Now, the subject terms, the way they're created in the Library of Congress, on the very end of all of these subject terms, you'll see the term periodicals. And why do we have periodicals so many times? Well, the way that the subject terms are created is you have certain subjects, like, say, the nuclear industry, and then you say, we want to talk about the nuclear industry in the United States. But this subject can be dealt with in varying forms in various types of materials. And so we have books, we have periodicals, we have audiovisual materials. And so these subject terms are the way that these subjects are discussed in periodicals. So the format always comes last, but it is there a lot of the time. Most of the time if it's not a book. And even if it is a book, if it's a fiction, then they have fiction at the end. If it's nonfiction, they have nonfiction at the end a lot of the time. So the subject terms that we have here are nuclear industry in the United States, again, and I'll just assume that you guys know that periodicals will be at the end. Nuclear power plants in the United States, electric utilities in the United States, and then nuclear industry, nuclear power plants, and electric utilities in general. And the language is English. That doesn't do us much good because we only have English books at the moment, or English maps created by the Government Publishing Office. And so we have the call number at the bottom, and it was published in 4 years, 1988, 1989, 1990, and 1991. And they're all in our main collection. So let's click on the subject terms really quickly. And we clicked on the first subject term, and this is the only work. If we click on Nuclear Industry United States Periodicals, it'll open up a list of all of the works that have that subject. Now, unfortunately, this book is the only result for that. But if you wanted to search by subject, and I want a book that has a similar subject to this item, click on the subject link, and it'll give you other books that have that same subject. Now, let's say I wanted to look at nuclear power in an alternate format. So, not in a nonfiction way, or not in a map way, in a book way. So we would go down to material type on the left-hand side of the search results. Again, if you want to go back to the page, you had nuclear power, click, and you have 128 results. And so let's say we want an ebook. We want an electronic resource. Not all electronic resources are ebooks, but let's just say include. So we have electronic resources, and that narrows it down to 57 results. And then if you want to look at the format, you can say, well, they're all electronic resources, so the material and the format are a little bit different, but technically the format should be a little bit different. That's okay. And then let's look at the nuclear power plants aspect of electronic resources on nuclear power. We want to look at nuclear power plants. We don't want to look at, renewable energy or a specific power plant or a government policies. We want to look at nuclear power plants specifically, and we want to make sure that they're current. So let's go to the publication date, and we have publications here from 1950 to 2000, 2001 to 2005, 2006 to 2010, 2011 to 2015, and 2016 to 2020. So let's click on 2016 to 2020, include. And we will look at this book right here. We have the safety of nuclear power plants and electronic resource. It's created by the International Atomic Energy Agency. So it's an oversight organization, but it is a safety standards book on the safety of nuclear power plants commissioning and operation. So this kind of gives a general guide of how nuclear power plants work, how they're maintained. But let's say we wanted to look at a new other type of book. Let's say we wanted to look about something related to Chernobyl. So you type in Chernobyl. And then you look at the electronic resource format. And then you go to the publication date. And let's click on 2016 to 2020 again. And then you have the Chernobyl disaster electronic resource, the nuclear catastrophe and its devastating effects. It's an online resource. It's 27 pages long. It's in English again. And this is an electronic access resource. So you can click to view it, and you go straight to ProQuest ebook. And you can read it online, or you can download the book. So I hope that this has kind of shown you a little bit of how you can use the search items and search terms and metadata collectively with each other to ensure that you are finding accurate and reliable information. And let's say, I'll give you another tip really quickly. Say you want to look at Idaho history. And let's say you were looking for a book, and there's a pamphlet here. So let's say you want only books, and let's say you want a publication date of 1973 to 2003 to keep it relatively recent. And let's say you only want to look at the main collection, because the special collections, Heritage Center, that can be kind of stressful to sort through right now. So you just want something kind of in the main collection. And so here we have, it's kind of interesting, published in 1996, so a little bit behind the times, but still fairly recent. A Roadside History of Idaho by Betty Derrick. So let's say that you forget what it is. You forget the book. You find it, but you forget exactly what the call number is, and you can't find it. Well, you can search for the Roadside History of Idaho, and that might bring it up. But you want to search for the main parts of the title. If you search for Roadside History of Idaho, that could bring it up, but it also could not bring it up, because the amount of words could confuse the search engine, could confuse the catalog browser, and you want to get your terms in the search query to be the main parts of the book, the main parts of the title. So you search Roadside Idaho. And then we have the Roadside History of Idaho, but we also have the Roadside Geology of Idaho, which was published a few years before then. So let's click on the Roadside History of Idaho. We have a bunch of different metadata items again. And if you want to get books like that, we can click on the subject term Historic Sites, Idaho Guidebooks, and then we have all these different items we have Idaho Unbound, a scrapbook and guide, and if you want to sort them by the publication date, here we have the publication date ascending, so it starts in the 1980s, and then descending, it will start in 2020. And here we have Idaho Rocks, a guide to geologic sites in the Gem State by Reed Lewis, Mark McFadden, John Burt, and Chelsea McRaven Feeney. And then we have Idaho's Historic Trails, From Lewis and Clark to Railroads by Martin Patuchek. And that was published in 2003. And so there are many, many ways you can use this catalog to find things. You can, again, sort by date, author, title, and then the format on the side. You can search for books by specific author. And the difference between this is you can limit search results to only be by specific authors. And then on the right side, you can sort them by author name. So if you want multiple authors, but you're looking for a specific author with related authors, you can keep the sorting, but don't limit the search results. So there are many different ways. You can also combine this with Open Access Reading Source, which is another tab in the same catalog. There are a multitude of ways you can use metadata and subject terms to find what you're looking for in multiple formats. You could find things that you weren't even looking for, but answer your question in a better way than the source you were looking for originally. And I've done that many, many times. So this has been very fun. Thank you for listening and watching, and I'll see you next week on the Knowledge Nest. Again, look out for more activities from the library and more resources that we are creating. Have a wonderful week.